There were four key strategies that transformed my career from, let's call it loser status, to rockstar status. One of those being the one-page financial plan, which I'm going to walk you through in today's video. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matthew Jarvis. I built a $2 million a year RIA practice. I'm the author of the book, Delivering Massive Value, and I recently exited my practice for an 8-figure sum. Now, it has not always been this case. I have not always been at the top of the field because I think no one starts at the top of the field. It was a long and rough journey to get there. In fact, this is a picture of me. This is a postcard we had done up early in my career. And by early, I mean year 5. So year 5 of my career, I was at a negative $100,000 profit. How do you get to a negative $100,000 profit? I'm still trying to figure that out myself. We call that a loss. At the time, I had a team of 5 on $300,000 of gross revenue, and I was maxing out every credit card I could find in an attempt to find something that would work, including this stupid postcard, and that's me with hair in the orange shirt. I'll give you the abridged version. No one responded to those postcards because it was a super bad idea. Unfortunately, it got worse from there. I tried everything I could possibly think of. Websites, bulk mail, lead services, mailing lists, brochures, grocery cart ads. Yeah, that was really a thing, not advisable for financial advisors or anyone else. Software, seminar ads, etc. And none of those things ever delivered results for me. In fact, it got to the point where I couldn't really even figure out why anyone would want to hire me as a financial advisor. Like, I would meet with clients or prospective clients, and I would give them my presentation, and I would show them some elaborate financial planning software. And in my heart of hearts, I couldn't figure out why they would hire me. So what changed? Like, how did I go from that to where I am today? And it was really 4 key pieces. The first is following a proven system of success, AKA finding people who were already doing what works and copying their system. Second, retirement income guardrails. Third, my prospect process of making an educated and informed decision. And fourth, and what we're going to focus on today, is one-page financial plans. The graph that you see there, and some other day I'll show you the numbers. That top line is my income growth. The red line are my profits, my personal income, and the green line, days off. You can see those first few years very flat to declining. And then once I figured these out, we did very, very well, as have other advisors. So today we're going to focus on the one-page financial plan, because at the end of the day, all financial advisors look the same. Like, I know you think your designations are special and that you're a fiduciary or fee only, or that you wear a cool vest, whatever it is. Ultimately, most people's marketing campaign is as elaborate as pick me because I'm special, which leaves consumers unsure of what to do. And then they ultimately go based on fees or good looks, which is not going to work for me, or office location, or simply big name. And so I needed a different approach, which I call the one-page financial plan. Now, I learned this strategy from one of the greatest financial advisors I'd ever met, a fellow named Tom Gao, who passed away several years ago. Tom built 3 separate incredible practices using this exact same one-page financial plan format. And what I love about the one-page financial plan, and we're going to go through it here, like, this is a real one. We redacted it. This is a real one from my practice. It shows a prospect exactly what it is we're going to do for them. In fact, I tell prospects, I say, hey, listen, before you pay me $1 in fees or trust me with a penny of your nest egg, I want you to see exactly what it is that we're going to do for you. And great news, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, you can take this same one-page financial plan and you can use it to compare and evaluate any other financial advisor you're considering. Now, I would ask that you not show someone else my work, because if you show them, they're going to say, oh yeah, we can do that. But if they can do that, why do they need my list and not theirs? So do our one-page financial plan and then have them do whatever theirs is, and you can compare those results, but again, compare it on your time. The other thing I really liked about the one-page financial plan is it really helped with my confidence, because I wasn't sitting down with a prospect and saying, hey, please pick me. Please, 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 please. Like, I really need you as a client. I'm saying, hey, here's exactly what we can do for you. And if this makes sense for you, then awesome, let's work together. And if this doesn't make sense, then great news, we can part ways as friends and you can keep this great advice. So let's take a little bit more of a look into this. The biggest thing in creating a one-page financial plan, or really doing any work, is not so much knowing the answers, but knowing the questions to ask. And so this is a template of the questions I ask myself every time I'm building a one-page financial plan. And so I have questions in each of those areas. We're going to break those down one at a time, but it's really 5 key areas. What were their primary goals, which is really restating whatever they told me they were trying to accomplish. What do they need for retirement income? Remember, my niche is retirees. If your niche is different, you'll need to identify that based on them. What are we doing for risk management? In other words, what are the icebergs that could sink this retirement? Number 4 is income taxes. How can we pay what we owe but not leave a tip? And last, and intentionally last, is investment portfolio. Why is investment portfolio last? Because every other firm they go to talk to is going to lead with investments. And I'm going to let them know, hey, that's putting the cart before the horse. Investments can only come after we have a plan in place, not before. And so, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, if anyone ever leads with investments or tries to differentiate themselves with investments, you're probably in the wrong spot. So let's go ahead and look through each of these sections. The first section, as you may recall, technically the second. The first was their goals. Just restate what they said. The second is retirement income. In other words, how are they going to generate income in retirement and how much? My key tool in this is the retirement income guardrails. We'll talk about that in more details in another video, but this gives me a tool I can show to clients and say, hey, based on your nest egg of X, in this example, $2.1 million, here's how much income we can generate, and here's where we'll need to make adjustments when the market goes up or goes down, or if you add a lot of money or take out a lot of money. You'll notice here on the screen some of the other questions I want to answer in this. How much net of taxes will they have in income? How does this income compare to how much they're currently spending? And then, of course, and you'll see this in every section, what advice can I offer that will improve their retirement income situation? These do not need to be grandiose. Like sometimes we fall in this trap and we think, I've got to give this person like a super elaborate answer. Most clients, and this is no disrespect, most of them aren't even sure how much they're going to get from Social Security. They're not sure how much they're going to get from their nest egg. They don't understand a lot of these things. And so by articulating them, I'm really the first one who has done that. And we can always go deeper. Like I always want to start foundational and work up from there. I don't want to start with a Monte Carlo illustration looking out on year 30. What I really want to do is, hey, in year 1, once we turn on all the income and pay on all the taxes, here's how much you'll receive. Okay, let's go to the next section, which is risk management. This is where we're primarily going to focus on their estate documents. We're going to focus on how they would handle a long-term care scenario. This is not the same as long-term care insurance. This is where we're going to talk a lot about using the home equity in your home or quality of life versus quantity of life and any other risks they may be facing that they're not aware of. Now, you'll notice, and we'll come back to this in a minute, when you look at that sample one-page financial plan, or not sample, it was a real one, we're not going super in depth. I'm not going to say, hey, listen, you need to have $487,000 of long-term care insurance. I'm going to say, hey, we need a strategy for paying for long-term care should you need it. Now, again, this might seem basic to you and to my fellow advisors. To the client, I'm the first person that's ever articulated it that way, because if anyone had talked to them about long-term care insurance, it was from the context of trying to scare them into buying insurance versus creating a strategy for long-term care. And so I'm going to identify several of those risks. And again, I'm going to ask myself, what advice can I offer to improve their ability to avoid risks in retirement? This could be liability insurance. This could be establishing a war chest. There's lots of different things here. Okay. Next section, tax strategies. If there was ever a silver bullet in financial planning, it is tax strategies, not tax preparation. Don't go down that path. But showing people how they can legally and ethically reduce their tax bill. In fact, I even explain to prospects in this process, I say, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, our philosophy is that we need to pay every dollar in taxes that we owe, but we're under no obligation to leave the IRS a tip. And everybody smiles at that one. And I say, but if we end up showing you tax strategies, you think, boy, this is really too good. Like I'm really not paying enough in taxes. Great news. The IRS does accept donations against the national debt, and they're even tax deductible. And we smile on that one because, again, no one's going to donate to the national debt, but they can. Like we're making light of that. So then I'm going to go through on their tax return. And of course, I have the prior 2 years tax returns, and I'm going to look for opportunities for them to pay less in taxes. Now, this could be as simple as max fund your 401k accounts before you retire, or establish a donor advised fund to cover your charitable giving, or start doing strategic Roth conversions in retirement. Again, I don't have to go super nuanced. This doesn't need to be establish residency in Puerto Rico so you can dodge the federal income tax. Like, we're not looking for this crazy complexity. We're looking first at foundational level things that everyone sort of knows, but no one actually does. Then we're going to go to investment recommendations. I never give investment recommendations that are more specific than this. And how specific is this? That looks like just a basic asset allocation. Why? Well, I never want to talk about funds, their funds, my funds, any other funds or investments until they've become a client for a couple of reasons. One, no matter what investments I recommend, someone can cherry pick some investments that have performed better than mine. Like, it's easy to back test performance. And I don't want to fall into this trap of saying, well, is it fund this or fund that or 3 stars or 5 stars or whatever it is. I want to stay very high level. Notice these recommendations. Consolidate accounts to simplify tracking and reduce fees. That applies to everyone. Build a portfolio designed to generate 40 years of income. Again, applies to everyone. And a possible asset allocation. Now, if they have some anomalies in there, I might say, hey, listen, we really need to deal with this old annuity that you have or this big cash stockpile that you have, whatever that might be. But you'll notice that I'm staying really high level on investments as well. And as I mentioned earlier, investments always come last because everyone else is leading with investments. Now, I have to confess, the first time I saw the one-page financial plan, I thought, there's no way this thing can work. This could have been drawn by a 6-year-old with color crayons. And yet it worked for Tom Gow, who trained me. And so I thought, great, if it worked for Tom, I'm going to do it. It can work for me. I did it with the next prospect that came in, who happened to be the biggest prospect I ever had, several $1 million at the time. And I did the one-page financial plan. This guy was the CFO for a publicly traded company, a former CPA, very, very smart guy. He said, this is exactly what I need. On another occasion, I was referred to a client or a prospective client who was being cashed out of his privately held company stock. He sits down with me and we're talking about doing a one-page financial plan. He says, Matthew, I got to be honest, I think I'm in the wrong spot. He says, how big is your biggest client? And I said, well, our clients range, in net worth. And he says, no, cut the crap, net worth, biggest net worth client. I said, well, about $12 million, our biggest net worth client. He says, well, you seem like a nice guy, but I'm pretty sure I'm in the wrong place because I'm cashing out of my company for $70 million. And I just don't feel like you can handle a $70 million client. And we'll call him Bob. And I said, you know what, Bob, you might be right there. That is quite a bit bigger than anything we've dealt with before. And I thought, well, Bob, you're already here. Let's go ahead and take you through the one-page financial plan. And worst case, Bob, you can use this to evaluate all of the other firms that you're considering that are used to having clients of your size. And Bob reluctantly said, well, yeah, sure, I guess. Since I'm here, I might as well do it. And so we took him through the one-page financial plan process. I gave him the one-page financial plan, and I expected to never see him again because he was going to meet with all of the biggest RA firms in our big city. And I thought, well, I'll never see him again. Well, a few weeks later, I get a call from Bob. He says, Matthew, this is Bob. I said, of course, Bob, I remember you. He says, hey, listen, I went and met with all of the biggest firms in Seattle where my practice was located. They did these elaborate financial plans. They were leather bound. They even did my family genealogy for some reason. I'm not sure why. He said, by the end of the day, I couldn't understand what they were trying to tell me. You were the only person that gave me straightforward advice. I want to hire you. Wow. So here's my one-page financial plan that admittedly is very simple looking. There's no logos, there's no charts, there's no graphs, there's no Monte Carlo illustration. It's a dozen bullet points, 2 dozen bullet points, and a $70 million prospect picked that over the most complex financial plans that you could see. So what I would encourage you to do is don't throw this baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Even if you want to do long, elaborate financial plans, do this one-page summary with that and see what the prospect likes. Now, this is all part of a more elaborate prospect process because if you're going to deliver a one-page financial plan, you need to warn the prospect because if they're expecting a 10-page, 20-page, 100-page, 1,000-page, who knows what, financial plan and you present one page, it's going to seem strange to them. They're going to say, hey, wait, is something wrong here? Is this guy being lazy? And so I always let prospects know. I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, I used to do these really long, elaborate financial plans, and I really nerded out on them because that's what kind of person I am. But I realized that nobody enjoyed them as much as I did. So instead of giving you a 100-page financial plan, I'm going to give you a one-page executive summary of the key bullet points of the action items you need to take. We can certainly go into more detail if you'd like, but we're going to start there. Is that okay with you? And every single prospect, from the person with 500,000 to the person with literally 70 million, says, yeah, actually, that's exactly what I'd like to do. So In all of these angles, when we're communicating with clients or prospective clients, this verbiage comes up again and again, which is to accomplish your goal of X, to accomplish your goal of retiring at age 62, to accomplish your goal of leaving money to your kids, to accomplish your goal of never running out of money, like whatever that is, we need to blank because it will X. So to achieve your goal of $5,000 a month, we need to build a portfolio that's set up to sustain income for 40 years and has a 5-year war chest, because the day you retire, the markets will go down in celebration of your retirement, and we need to be ready for that. So I use this framework again and again and again. But as I mentioned, this has to be part of a prospect process. You can't just run down the street and assault people with a one-page financial plan. It will not work. It needs to be part of, and I follow a 6-step prospect process that we'll cover in other videos. But in that step 4, that second office meeting, that is when I would present this one-page financial plan. And it works with an incredibly high degree of success because it shows people, again, exactly what it is I'm going to do, and they can compare that to everyone else. I do also like to seed in there. I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, what you see on this list, we call this our low-hanging fruit. These are the things that I saw on my first pass through. Imagine what we'll find when we work together long-term. So if this video was helpful for you, I have an entire chapter on the one-page financial plan in my book, Delivering Massive Value, which you can find in the show notes, or you can go to deliveringmassivevalue.com/book to receive a copy of the book and a dozen bonus videos on this very subject. And until next time, happy planning.